The natural world has always been filled with battles that push the limits of survival. Some are straightforward lion against zebra eagle against snake, but others exist only in the realm of imagination. What if the most feared solitary assassin in the insect world came face to face with an army built entirely on cooperation? Would lethal venom triumph, or would overwhelming numbers crush it? That is the question that drives today's experiment: ants versus spider. For centuries, humans have feared spiders. With their venomous bites, silk traps, and alien-like bodies, they dominate nightmares as much as ecosystems. The black widow in particular carries a reputation like no other. Sleek and dark with the iconic red hourglass on her abdomen, she has become the symbol of deadly arachnids. Her venom is strong enough to paralyze prey instantly, and in large doses can be fatal to humans. In the tiny scale of the insect world, she is a predator without equal. But on the other side stand the ants. Not a single species, but a family of creatures numbering in the quadrillions. They exist everywhere, from the depths of rainforests to the cracks of sidewalks. Unlike the spider, ants are not designed for solitary combat. Their strength lies in numbers, communication, and unity. An individual ant is almost nothing. 1,000 ants, however, are something else entirely. They are a living army capable of building cities, farming other insects, defending colonies, and overrunning creatures many times their size. So what happens when these two forces collide? A solitary venomous predator against an army that never fights alone. Today we will not just imagine this battle, we will stage it. We will see what happens when 50 ants face a spider, then 200, and finally 1,000. Step by step, we will measure where the tipping point lies between lethal venom and the overwhelming tide of numbers. This is not a fight staged for cruelty or spectacle, but an experiment designed to reveal the strategies of survival that nature has shaped over millions of years. In the wild, such confrontations do happen. A wandering spider might stumble into the territory of an ant colony. An ant scouting party might cross paths with a web hidden in the grass. When these worlds meet, the outcome is never guaranteed. Sometimes the spider strikes fast, eliminating the intruder before reinforcements arrive. Other times, the colony responds in force, and the hunter becomes the hunted. To understand what is truly at stake in this experiment, we need to frame it clearly. The black widow is armed with one of the most potent venoms known in the spider world. Its neurotoxins can immobilize prey almost instantly by attacking the nervous system, shutting down muscles, and making escape impossible. Against a cricket or a fly, it is nearly always fatal. But venom works bite by bite, one injection at a time. That is the widow's limitation. The ants, on the other hand, are armed with small but numerous weapons. Each has mandibles sharp enough to bite and a stinger that can inject venom of its own. Against a human, the sting is little more than painful, but against other insects, repeated stings can be devastating. More importantly, ants do not fight as individuals. They communicate through pheromones, instantly summoning reinforcements, coordinating attacks, and overwhelming enemies in a way no solitary predator can match. This sets the stage for one of the most fascinating questions of nature. Is it better to be one assassin or an army? And the only way to answer it is to put both sides to the test. Before we begin, let's acknowledge the stakes. This is not a fair fight. The spider is alone. The ants are many. But fairness is not how nature works. Evolution rewards strategies that succeed, not equal duels. And throughout history, both strategies have succeeded. Spiders continue to thrive across the globe using stealth webs and venom to dominate. Ants thrive in even greater numbers using unity and sheer force to spread across every continent except Antarctica. Today's battle is simply a reflection of this ancient rivalry. Our plan is simple. First, we introduce a small number of ants against the spider 50 to start. Then we double the numbers, pushing the test to 200. Finally, we unleash the full force of 1,000 ants, a swarm so large that it will truly reveal whether even the deadliest venom can stand against overwhelming odds. Along the way, we'll analyze the strategies, behaviors, and outcomes, showing not just who wins, but why. Already the anticipation builds. The spider, a solitary predator, honed by evolution to be lethal in one strike. The ants, small but united, a legion that moves as one. This is not just a clash of species, it is a clash of philosophies. The lone hunter versus the collective. Individual power versus communal strength. And so we begin. In one corner, the black widow spider, sleek, venomous, and feared. In the other, a colony of harvester ants, tireless, relentless, and united. The question has been asked for years. Today we will answer it. Before the battles begin, we need to understand our competitors in detail. It is easy to say spider and ants, but each of these creatures comes with millions of years of evolutionary history, weapons forged by survival, and strategies that have kept them thriving across the planet. If we want to truly appreciate the fight ahead, we must first meet the fighters. On one side, we have the spider. Not just any spider, but one of the most infamous, the Black Widow. She is a creature that lives in shadows, stringing her messy but effective web close to the ground in sheltered corners of the world. Unlike orb weavers that create geometric masterpieces in the open air, the Black Widow prefers tangled webs that double as both hunting ground and fortress. Within that fortress lies her deadliest weapon, venom. Black Widow venom is considered among the most potent in the arachnid kingdom. It contains a neurotoxin called neurotoxin, which targets the nervous system of its prey. Insects stung by this venom are paralyzed in moments, their muscles lock, their bodies collapsing. Even vertebrates, including humans, are not immune. A Black Widow bite is intensely painful, often requiring medical treatment, though deaths are rare. Still, in the world of small creatures, it is nearly unbeatable. Imagine a predator that doesn't just kill its prey, but shuts it down completely, leaving it helpless, while the spider wraps it in silk for later consumption. That is the Widow's arsenal. But the Widow is also vulnerable. She is built for stealth, ambush, and single kills. She thrives when prey stumbles into her web, where she controls the battlefield. Take her out of that web, put her into open ground, and her advantage shrinks. She can bite only one opponent at a time, and venom, while strong, is not instant against every creature. Her fangs are small, her legs relatively thin. If surrounded, she may panic, retreat, or fail to bite enough enemies before they overwhelm her. That is her greatest weakness. She is not designed for war. She is designed for assassination. And then there are the ants. If the Black Widow is the assassin, the ants are the soldiers. Harvester ants in particular are an incredible species. They live in colonies that can number tens of thousands, each individual playing a role. Workers forage, soldiers defend, queens reproduce. Every ant is a cog in a machine that functions with near-perfect coordination. What makes them so formidable is not their size. Each ant is tiny compared to a spider, but their ability to act as one. Their communication is chemical. Ants release pheromones that can instantly rally the colony to action. One sting, one injury, one signal can summon hundreds of reinforcements. And when they arrive, they do not arrive chaotically. They arrive with purpose, swarming over prey, biting, stinging, and tearing in unison. A spider might inject venom into one opponent, but the ants can deliver hundreds of stings within seconds. Each sting is small, but combined they become devastating. The mandibles of harvester ants are also powerful tools. With them, they can cut through vegetation, carry seeds, or in battle slice into flesh. Their stingers deliver venom of their own. While not nearly as potent as a widow's, the combined effect of dozens or hundreds of stings can immobilize even larger creatures. In fact, harvester ants are sometimes feared by humans because of the pain of their stings, which can be sharp and long-lasting. Against insects that sting is deadly. But perhaps the ant's greatest weapon is not their bite or sting, it is their persistence. Ants do not give up. They do not retreat easily. They will continue attacking, even sacrificing themselves for the good of the colony. It is this selflessness that allows them to overwhelm opponents far larger than themselves. Individually, an ant is fragile. Collectively, they are a storm. So here we have the duel, an assassin with lethal venom against an army of tireless soldiers. One is feared across the globe, her reputation larger than her body. The other is underestimated, often ignored, until their numbers reveal their true strength. Let's break down the strategies each side will likely employ. The spider placed into the arena will rely on agility in her bite. She may rear back, attempt to strike quickly at the first ant to approach, and hope the venom spreads fear among the rest. If she can kill a few quickly, she may intimidate the swarm, buying herself time to escape or reposition. Her silk may come into play. If she has enough time to anchor threads, though, in an artificial arena, this advantage will be limited. Her best chance is speed, bite fast, move faster, and avoid being swarmed. The ants, however, have an entirely different strategy. They do not need to intimidate. They do not need to fear. Their strength is in sheer numbers. The first ant to make contact may be bitten and killed, but his sacrifice will trigger the others. Pheromones will spread, the colony will enter red alert, and within seconds, dozens will swarm the spider's legs, anchoring her down. Once immobilized, the stingers will do the rest. They do not need to aim for vital spots. They simply need to sting enough times from enough angles until the spider collapses. It is a battle of time. Can the widow kill enough ants quickly enough to scare or escape? Or will the ants reach critical mass where the swarm grows too heavy to resist? That is what we will discover in the rounds ahead. Before we move on, let's not forget one crucial element: scale. The widow is larger, heavier, and deadlier one-on-one. An individual ant is tiny, fragile, and disposable. But survival in nature has never been about size alone. A lion is stronger than a hyena, but a pack of hyenas can drive off a lion. A wolf is stronger than a fox, but foxes survive through cunning and persistence. Here, the widow's size and venom mean little if she is outnumbered 100 to 1. This is why today's experiment matters. It highlights not only the power of individuals, but the unstoppable force of the collective. It's a microcosm of nature's oldest battle: strength versus numbers, individuality versus cooperation. And now, with our fighters introduced and their strategies clear, it's time to begin. We will not throw the spider directly against 1,000 ants, not yet. Instead, we will test the waters, increasing the numbers step by step. Round 1, 50 ants. Round 2, 200. And finally, the ultimate test: 1,000 ants. The stage is set. The fighters are ready. Venom versus numbers. Assassin versus army. Let the battle begin. Before unleashing the ants against one of the deadliest spiders in the world, we must test them. Not because they need to be stronger, but because the audience and nature itself needs proof of their abilities. These trials are not about cruelty. They are about observation, about revealing how ants behave in different scenarios, how their strategies adapt, and what makes them such unstoppable survivors. Like soldiers before a great war, the ants will be put through a gauntlet of challenges that will prepare them for the final battle. Challenge 1: the hunt, testing speed and coordination. The first test is simple: a cricket. It may sound unfair, 1,000 ants against a single cricket, but the point is not balance. It is speed. How fast can they bring down prey once it enters their nest? The cricket is introduced into the enclosure. At first it hesitates, antennae twitching, sensing the unfamiliar vibrations of its new environment. For a brief moment, it is free hopping around, avoiding contact. But that freedom lasts seconds. The first scout ant touches the cricket's leg, and instantly a pheromone signal spreads through the colony. Within moments, dozens of workers swarm the cricket from every direction. Mandibles clamp down. Stingers jab again and again. The cricket thrashes, but the more it moves, the more ants latch onto it. In less than a minute, the once active insect is immobilized, overwhelmed by venom and sheer force. For humans, the sting of a single harvester ant is painful but survivable. For a cricket facing 20 or more at once, it is the end. This scene demonstrates the ant's most important advantage: speed through coordination. Alone, one ant might struggle for minutes or hours. Together, they need seconds. Their enemy is not just the cricket in front of them, it is time itself. By reducing the time an enemy has to escape, the ants ensure success. And in the final battle, that same strategy will apply to the Black Widow. Challenge 2. The traps of nature, the antlion pit. The next test is more dangerous. Antlions are predators designed specifically to hunt ants. Their strategy is unique. They dig conical pits in loose sand, creating traps where the walls collapse under the weight of intruders. At the bottom, hidden beneath grains, waits the antlion, jaws open. One ant is placed near the edge of such a pit. At first, it seems to ignore the danger, walking casually across the unstable surface. Then the sand gives way. The walls slide inward, dragging the ant down. The antlion responds instantly, hurling sand to keep its prey sliding toward its jaws. For most insects, this is the end. But ants are not most insects. The trapped worker thrashes, digging upward, stinging blindly at the shifting sand. Incredibly, it manages to scramble free. The antlion awakened lunges, but the ant is gone, climbing out of the pit. The predator has failed. This experiment shows resilience. Ants are prey as much as they are predators, but their persistence, their refusal to stop struggling, gives them chances to survive even perfect traps. It is a lesson in determination. Even when swallowed by sand, they fight back. Challenge 3: the plants that bite back. Venus flytraps. The next training session takes us to plants. While ants are known for hunting animals, some plants hunt ants. The Venus flytrap with its hinged jaws is one of the most famous. Each trap has tiny trigger hairs inside. Touch them twice and the jaws snap shut in a fraction of a second, trapping whatever creature is inside. When the ants are released near the traps, most explore cautiously. They ignore the bait of oats sprinkled across the enclosure and instead cluster together investigating as a unit. But not all are so lucky. One curious ant wanders too far. The trap closes its spiked edges, locking tight. Inside, the ant struggles, legs flailing. To the plant, the ant is nothing more than future nutrients. Yet surprisingly, the majority of ants avoid the traps entirely. Some even walk across the lips of the plants without triggering the hairs. Their strategy here is not aggression, but caution instinct, guiding them away from danger. They regroup, focusing on carrying food rather than investigating death. This trial reveals adaptability. Ants are not reckless killers. They are capable of avoiding risks when the reward is not worth it. Against the black widow, this adaptability will be critical. It is not just about rushing in. It is about knowing when and how to strike. Challenge 4, the flood. Disaster preparedness. The final challenge simulates a natural disaster, a flood. In the wild, rain can collapse tunnels, drown colonies, and wipe out generations in a single storm. But ants are known for one of the most remarkable survival tactics in the animal kingdom: raft building. In South America, fire ants famously lock their bodies together, floating for days across floodwaters, with the queen protected at the center. In our test, water drips slowly into the ant's enclosure. At first, panic erupts. Droplets fall on individual workers, soaking them. Tunnels begin to collapse, grains of sand tumbling inward. But the panic fades quickly. Ants gather at the site of intrusion, linking their bodies together. They shield the entrances with living walls, sacrificing themselves so the inner chambers remain safe. Eggs, larvae, and the queen remain untouched. This is not instinct for individuals. It is instinct for the colony. The ants do not fight for themselves. They fight for survival of the whole. And it is this instinct that makes them so dangerous. In the upcoming fight, each worker will sacrifice itself if needed. They do not hesitate. They do not retreat. They throw themselves at the enemy until the threat is gone. Lessons from the training grounds. Through these challenges, the ants have shown every strength they possess. Against prey, they are swift. Against predators, they are resilient. Against traps, they are cautious. Against disaster, they are united. These traits are the foundation of their dominance on Earth. Quadrillions of ants roam the planet, and these tests show why they are not just insects. They are a system, a colony, a force of nature. Now the stage is set. The ants have been tested, challenged, and proven. They are ready. The only question that remains: will all of this be enough when they face the Black Widow? The training was complete. The ants had proven themselves against prey, predators, traps, and even disaster. But all of those were merely preparation. The true test was about to begin. For the first time, the harvester ants would be placed into the same arena as the Black Widow. To make this battle fair and to capture the tipping point between venom and numbers, we would not start with the full colony. Instead, we would escalate in stages: 50 ants, then 200, and finally the full force of 1,000. Each round would show us more clearly where the line is drawn between a solitary assassin and an unstoppable army. Round 150, ants versus the Black Widow. The arena was prepared: a glass enclosure with a thin layer of sand, a few sticks, and enough space for movement. The Black Widow was placed inside first. She immediately climbed the nearest branch, her legs moving with a smooth, deliberate grace. In the light, her glossy black body gleamed, and the faint red hourglass on her abdomen pulsed like a warning sign. She waited poised, sensing vibrations through her legs. Then the first ants were released. 50 workers marched out of their container and began exploring their antennae, twitching their bodies, moving in chaotic but purposeful patterns. At first, the two sides ignored each other. The spider remained above the ants below. But curiosity is fatal in nature. The first ant stumbled onto the base of the stick and began climbing. In an instant, the widow struck. She lunged downward, fangs piercing the ant's exoskeleton, injecting venom. The ant twitched violently, legs curling in on themselves. Within seconds, it was paralyzed. The spider retreated, leaving the twitching body behind. But ants are not wired for fear. The death of one does not stop the colony. More workers approached, climbing higher. The widow struck again, and another fell. For several minutes, the pattern repeated: one ant approaches the widow, bites, the ant falls. By the time half of the ants were gone, the survivors seemed hesitant, circling the base of the stick instead of climbing. In the end, the widow stood victorious. 50 ants were not enough. Against a small group, her venomous precision was overwhelming. The lesson of round 1 was clear. One assassin can outmatch a handful of soldiers as long as the numbers remain low. Round 2, 200 ants versus the Black Widow. The next round began with greater tension. 200 ants poured into the arena, their numbers quadrupled that of the first battle. This time they spread across the enclosure like a living tide, their sheer presence enough to shake the balance. At first, the spider repeated her earlier strategy. She perched on the branch, waiting for individuals to approach. The first ant climbed. Bite. The second followed. Bite. Two quick kills, the venom working flawlessly. But this time the swarm reacted faster. As the widow struck, pheromones filled the air. The chemical alarm spread and suddenly dozens of ants surged up the stick. The spider panicked. Instead of striking again, she retreated upward, her long legs scrambling to escape. Ants reached her, clamping onto her legs with their mandibles. She shook violently, tossing some off, but more replaced them. For the first time, she was surrounded on multiple sides. In the chaos, she managed another bite. One ant fell, then another, but the cost was high. While she killed a handful, she could not kill fast enough. Her venom, while potent, worked one bite at a time. The ants worked by the dozen. The battle dragged for minutes. The widow struggled to keep moving, using her agility to avoid being pinned. Eventually, she broke free, running across the glass walls of the enclosure where the ants could not follow easily. Panting, legs trembling, she escaped into the corner. The outcome of round 2 was less decisive. The widow killed many ants, but the swarm had nearly trapped her. It was a stalemate, an uneasy balance. Against 200, she could still survive, but only by retreating, not by dominating. The assassin was beginning to falter. Round 3, 1,000 ants versus the Black Widow. And then came the final round. The full colony. 1,000 harvester ants against a single Black Widow spider. The enclosure filled like a battlefield. Ants poured in a wave of red bodies moving across the sand in all directions. The widow, placed in the center, froze. She sensed it immediately, the vibrations of hundreds of tiny feet surrounding her. For the first time, she was not the predator waiting in ambush. She was the prey. The first contact came quickly. A scout bit her back leg. She lashed out, fangs snapping, killing the worker instantly. But as soon as she pulled her fangs free, 5 more ants replaced him. They swarmed her legs, climbing higher, biting, stinging. She twisted and spun, trying to shake them off, but the glass walls trapped her. There was no escape. The widow managed another bite, killing a second, then a third. But the math was impossible. With every ant she struck down, dozens more piled on. Her venom could not spread fast enough. She was dragged downward, her 8 legs flailing, mandibles snapping. Within a minute, the swarm engulfed her completely. Her glossy black body disappeared beneath a writhing mass of red. The iconic hourglass vanished. The assassin was gone, buried alive under the weight of the colony. Stingers pierced her abdomen. Mandibles ripped at her legs. The Black Widow never stood a chance. When the dust settled, the outcome was undeniable. The Black Widow, the symbol of lethal venom, the fearsome solitary hunter, had been defeated. Not by strength, not by venom, but by numbers, by cooperation, by the relentless persistence of the ant colony. What the battles reveal, these 3 rounds tell a story larger than the arena itself. 50 ants were not enough. 200 brought the widow to the brink. 1,000 overwhelmed her completely. The tipping point was not venom versus venom. It was time. The widow could only strike one at a time. The ants struck in hundreds. In nature, this balance is what keeps ecosystems stable. Spiders thrive as solitary hunters, ruling their webs in ambush sites. Ants thrive as colonies, building empires beneath the soil. When they meet, the outcome depends not on who is stronger, but on who has the advantage of numbers. The widow is lethal alone. The ants are lethal together. And in this experiment, togetherness won. The earlier battles had already revealed the pattern. Against 50 ants, the widow was dominant. Against 200, she barely escaped. And against 1,000, she was swallowed whole. But now it was time to raise the stakes. This wasn't just a test anymore. It was the climax, the moment that would decide the ultimate question. Could one of the deadliest spiders on Earth hold her own against the full, unrelenting power of an ant colony? The stage is set. The arena was cleared and reset. New sand, fresh sticks, a wide open space designed not to give either side an unfair advantage. The Black Widow was introduced first. She moved carefully, her long legs testing the surface, her abdomen pulsing faintly as she spun out a few tentative strands of silk. She knew something was wrong. Spiders feel the world through vibration, and the air itself seemed charged with anticipation. Then came the ants. Not 50, not 200, but the entire colony. Thousands of tiny feet poured into the arena, a living river of red that spread outward in all directions. Their antennae waved, their bodies brushed against one another, and the collective hum of their movement filled the air. For a moment, time seemed to pause. The widow perched on her branch, motionless, while the swarm gathered below. Predator and prey, assassin and army locked in a tense silence. First contact. The first ant made contact. A lone worker crawled up the base of the stick, heading toward the widow. She reacted instantly, lunging forward, sinking her fangs into his exoskeleton. The venom surged. Within seconds, the ant curled up dead. The widow retreated slightly, as if to say, "This is my domain." But pheromones spread like wildfire. That single death triggered the alarm, and dozens of ants swarmed the base. Within seconds, the stick was alive with movement, ants racing upward faster than the widow could strike. She killed another, then another. But with every bite, her legs became covered with more attackers. Ants clamped down on her joints, their mandibles digging into the soft spaces between her exoskeleton plates. Others jabbed their stingers into her abdomen. The widow shook violently, throwing off some of the attackers, but the tide was rising. The widow's struggle. For a brief moment, it looked as if she might hold her ground. Her speed was unmatched, her strikes precise. Ants fell in small piles around her, their bodies twitching from the venom. But there were too many. Every ant killed was replaced by 10 more. The widow tried to escape, racing across the glass wall of the enclosure. But the surface was too slick, her legs slipping as ants clung to her body. She fell back onto the sand and the swarm descended. Now it was no longer a fight, it was a flood. Ants poured over her like water, their bodies layering on top of one another, creating a living net. Her legs thrashed beneath the weight, her fangs snapping in desperation. She managed one final strike, sinking her fangs into a worker, but by then it was meaningless. Hundreds were already on her abdomen, her cephalothorax, her legs. The fall of the assassin. Slowly the widow stopped moving. Her glossy black body, once gleaming and deadly, disappeared beneath the swarm. The red hourglass, the mark of her lethal legacy, was the last to vanish. Mandibles tore into her legs, stingers pumped venom into her body, and the assassin who had survived millions of years of evolution as a solitary killer was undone by sheer numbers. It took less than 2 minutes. One of the most feared spiders in the animal kingdom, brought down not by a stronger predator, but by an army of tiny workers no bigger than a fingernail. Science behind the swarm. What happened here was not just spectacle, it was science. The Black Widow's venom, though powerful, is limited by dosage and time. Each bite delivers enough toxin to paralyze a single insect. Against one ant, it is instant victory. Against dozens, it slows them but cannot stop the tide. Against hundreds, it is hopeless. The ants, by contrast, rely on cumulative damage. Each sting may be small, but when multiplied by hundreds, the effect becomes overwhelming. Their teamwork amplifies their strength. They do not need to strike vital organs. They do not need to aim. They simply sting, bite, and hold until the enemy collapses. This is the essence of swarm intelligence, many acting as one, turning small advantages into unstoppable power. The lesson of the climax. This final battle revealed something profound. The widow is a predator perfectly adapted for solitary hunting. Her venom is a scalpel, precise, deadly, but slow when outnumbered. The ants, on the other hand, they are not assassins. They are soldiers. Their power is not in individual strength, but in collective unity. In the wild, this balance explains why both species thrive. A widow in her web will dominate small intruders, her venom unmatched. But an ant colony in the open field will dominate nearly anything that crosses its path, including predators much larger than themselves. Neither is better than the other. They are simply adapted for different strategies. Today we forced those strategies into direct conflict, and the result was inevitable. Venom cannot outpace numbers. The assassin fell to the swarm. The symbolism of the fight. In many ways, this battle mirrors struggles beyond the insect world. It is a lesson about the limits of individual power and the strength of unity. One may be deadly skilled or even legendary, but against the collective force of many working together, even legends fall. The Black Widow symbolizes fear, precision, and lethal elegance. The ants symbolize persistence, sacrifice, and cooperation. When those forces meet, the outcome is not about who is strongest, but about who fights together, the aftermath. When the swarm finally broke apart, what remained was unrecognizable. The widow was reduced to fragments, her body carried piece by piece into the colony's tunnels. To the ants, she was no longer a predator, no longer a widow. She was food, nutrients to sustain the next generation, to feed the queen, to expand the empire. This is nature's final truth. Every predator eventually becomes prey. No matter how deadly, how feared, or how perfect, survival is temporary. In the end, what matters is not the individual, but the cycle, the way life feeds life, the way strategies clash and balance ecosystems. And so the climax ends not with a single victor standing tall, but with a colony feasting and a predator erased. The battle is over. The Black Widow, one of nature's most feared predators, lies defeated. The ants, countless and tireless, stand victorious. What began as a simple question, what happens when one spider fights 1,000 ants, has ended with an answer written in the most ancient law of survival: unity conquers isolation, the aftermath of the fight. When the swarm dispersed, what remained of the Black Widow was nothing more than fragments. Her legs, once so elegant and deadly, were scattered across the sand. Her abdomen, once gleaming with its iconic red hourglass, was reduced to food. Piece by piece, the ants carried her into their tunnels, transforming one of the most dangerous predators into sustenance for the colony. To the ants, this was not a battle. It was not personal. It was simply survival. For them, the widow was a threat to their nest, and threats must be eliminated. But once eliminated, she became resources. This is the cycle of life. Predator becomes prey. Death becomes nourishment, and the colony marches on. For the widow, there is a strange kind of respect in her defeat. She fought with the weapons evolution gave her: venom, speed, precision. But those weapons designed for ambush and one-on-one encounters could not match the tide of numbers. Against an army, her scalpel became useless. She was not weak. She was simply out of place. What we learned from each stage. From round one, we learned that venom dominates when numbers are low. 50 ants fell one by one, each paralyzed in moments. The widow proved her title as a solitary assassin. From round two, we learned that numbers begin to tip the balance. 200 ants were enough to drive her into retreat. She could kill, yes, but she could not kill quickly enough. Her precision faltered under pressure. From round three and the final climax, we learned the ultimate truth: numbers overwhelm. 1,000 ants erased the Black Widow in less than 2 minutes. Venom became irrelevant. Strength became meaningless. Unity became everything. The broader truth about nature. This experiment was never just about who wins in a fight. It was about strategies, about how different creatures survive in a world where survival is never guaranteed. The Black Widow represents specialization. She is the pinnacle of precision, designed for ambush, built to kill with surgical accuracy. Her venom is a masterpiece of chemistry, her web, a fortress of design. She survives by being perfect in her role. The ants represent collectivism. They are not perfect alone. Individually, they are fragile, expendable, weak. But together, they are an empire. They survive not through individual strength, but through cooperation, sacrifice, and unity. Neither is better in the grand scheme of evolution. Both strategies work. Both have thrived for millions of years. Both will continue to thrive long after this one battle is forgotten. That is the beauty of nature balance. Predators and prey hunters and swarms, individuals and collectives. Each has a place. Each fills a role. Why ants rule the earth. If we zoom out, the result of this battle points to a larger truth. Ants are without question one of the most successful creatures on Earth. With quadrillions of individuals spread across nearly every habitat, their dominance is unmatched. They farm, they wage war, they build cities underground, they even shape ecosystems. Their secret is simple: numbers. No single ant matters more than the colony. They act as one live, as one die, as one. It is this unity that makes them capable of defeating creatures much larger and more dangerous than themselves. The Black Widow may kill a cricket, a beetle, even a lizard in the wild. But against the unstoppable tide of ants, she falls. Not because she is weak, but because she is alone. The symbolism of the widow's defeat. There is something deeply symbolic about what we witnessed. The widow, sleek and feared, is a perfect image of power in isolation. The ants, countless and unremarkable as individuals, are a perfect image of power and unity. This is a lesson that extends far beyond the insect world. Alone, even the strongest fall. Together, even the smallest triumph. Nature has always known this truth. Humans in many ways have learned the same: survival depends not on the strength of one, but on the cooperation of many. A glimpse of what's next. So what happens next? We have seen what 1,000 ants can do to a Black Widow. But the widow is not the only predator in nature. There are others, larger, stronger, deadlier. What about a tarantula with its massive fangs and brute strength? What about a scorpion, armored and armed with a stinger that rivals even the deadliest snakes? What about predators that don't rely on venom at all, but on raw size and crushing force? Could the ants still prevail? Could their unity overcome armor and brute strength, just as it overcame venom and precision? Those are the questions for the next experiment. The widow has fallen, but the story of ants versus predators has only just begun. Final words. This battle was not about cruelty. It was not staged to glorify violence. It was staged to reveal the hidden laws of the natural world, to show us what happens when different survival strategies collide. It was about respect for the widow, for the ants, and for the incredible ways evolution has shaped them both. The black widow remains one of the deadliest spiders alive, feared and respected across the globe. The ants remain one of the most successful species alive, thriving by sheer force of unity. Both are extraordinary. Both are survivors. Both deserve our awe. And yet today in this arena, the ant stood victorious.